We begin a brand new episode where we're going to be installing the exterior insulation for the main house. We gotta be done by June-ish because that's when fire season starts. We'll show you how we protect our house against fire. We'll show you a lot of crazy details that we're going to be implementing. And really, a lot of you have asked me how to install exterior insulation. So we're going to be talking about all of that stuff. So let's get into it. Okay, so why don't we start with the why we need to, or we want to install exterior insulation. It is pricier, it takes more labor, so why do we want to do it? Why don't we think about ourselves first, and then basically our coats, our sweatshirts, everything. If we're like in winter, we go skiing, we want a nice raincoat, a nice jacket that will protect us from wind, but it will also protect us from water. So you can think of exterior insulation as a coat that you put onto the house and then it gets protected. If you didn't have exterior insulation, imagine you're wearing a vest, so you might be protected on the center, but you're not wearing anything on the outside, and then all that weather is going to be hitting you if it's raining, if it's cold. Ideally, you are fully protected, and that's what we're trying to do with the house. We're basically protecting the entire house, not just the walls, also the roof. We will have an episode before or after this one about the roof. That's how high-performance homes are built. Some high-performance homes, they end up using double walls. I'm not a big fan of double walls because I believe that's a tremendous waste of lumber. And another reason I don't like double walls is because, at least for us, we live in a fire-prone area and we don't want anything that's flammable exposed to the outside of the house. What's our solution? Well, our solution is to install mineral wool, as you can kind of see it right here. And this mineral wool, if we ever get, let's say, a fire or something, it will hopefully protect us from a fire standing next to it. Mineral wool can withstand up to 2000 degrees of heat next to it. I believe it's Celsius. That's the reason why we use mineral wool. The application that we use, it's actually very heavily used in commercial applications, not so much in residential. And after doing so much research and thinking about it, we came up with a solution. I like it, so I'm going to be showing all of this process throughout this video.
We have 4 inches of exterior insulation that are coming all the way from the footings, covering all the concrete wall up to here. And now we need to transition to the other exterior insulation because here is what you can see from the outside for the house. So this is what we have. So first off, we have the 4 inches of insulation, and then we have this thing right here. It's called the drainage mat. This one is protecting the insulation, and then we have this cover of aluminum flashing. So we're using this aluminum flashing for a few reasons. One of them is it protects from water. Another thing is that since it's coming underground, is going to prevent from all insects to coming in and creating their houses where we don't want them to. And finally, it looks really pretty. Oh, and one more thing, probably the most important one, is that it doesn't burn. So it's also going to protect us from fire. Remember that the transition, when you are pretty much in contact with the ground, is one of the most dangerous places. This is the first thing we are doing. This one here is the extension that is going to hold the exterior insulation in place. So we need a nice transition here. What we're doing is we are filling this space with bug mesh so that we don't get any insects from doing their houses in here. And then let me show you on the other side how we're going to finish this. I forgot to mention, the extensions that we are using are pressure treated. So you see this ZV, it means like zinc borated or zinc bromide or zinc something. The point is that they have to be pressure treated because now we are on the outside. And then what we do is on top of that one, we're going to apply another layer of aluminum flashing, and this one is pretty much for looks and for protection from fire. We are in love with our pump jack. But anyways, what I have here is a transition that we need to detail right now. So we have this retainer wall, which is concrete, and then we have this transition right here. So the thing is that we need a nailer in order to attach the siding, and we are at the point of finish work, so it needs to look nice. So what I'm doing here, first I have this layer of roof detail membrane. This is from GCP, it's similar to B2C. I'm applying this one here to protect from moisture coming from the concrete. And what I have right here, it's a piece of pressure treated LSL. I surrounded it it by aluminum so that it looks nice, and this one is going to go here. It's going to be a bit of a trick on how to attach it to everything else. We're probably going to toenail some screws or something, but anyways, this is what we're doing right now. We are at the finishing stages, so details are important.
So why don't we begin with these little purple things? Their name is Z-Girts. Some people might call them brackets, whatever. The reason I love these guys, and like I said, this is a commercial application, is because they are made out of fiberglass. So fiberglass has amazing properties. First off, is super strong. It is great against transfer of heat. So even though you're installing all this exterior insulation and then you have all this sticking out of the house, your heat or the cool from the outside is not going to transfer very easily through them. They're not as good as insulation, but they are better than lumber. And then one final thing, we're here in a mountain area, and I've mentioned it many times, and I will probably mention it many times in the future. We are very, very concerned on fire, and this is great protection against fire because this will not ignite. I think this will even start melting at 600 degrees Celsius. I don't know, but it can handle a lot of heat. Well, how do we install these guys? So we end up putting these guys at a 16-inch on center. Basically, we end up screwing them to the studs. In commercial applications, they run them continuously, but I figured, what's the point of running them continuously if we're only attaching to the stud? So we are cutting them every so often, and that way we can have continuous insulation in between them, and then we can also save a little bit of money. So let's be honest about that. We basically put this on every stud, and we end up using this Simpson SDWS framing screws. They are 3-inch. We put one at the top, one at the bottom, and that's how we're fastening these brackets to the wall. I might have forgotten to mention these brackets' purpose is to hold the insulation in place. This is a bit of a more complex house than the shed. The shed was piece of cake. It was 4 walls, 2 sidings, but in that case we were doing it vertically. In this case we have cantilevers, overhangs, all sorts of details going on, and we also have 2 kinds of siding. Siding is ending up deciding a lot of what we're going to be doing. That has to do with these extensions that you see up here. The reason we have these extensions, it's all because of the siding. So what we're going to end up having right here is we're going to have vertical black siding, and then above these extensions, you can also see it all the way over there, we're going to have wood looking siding, and they're going to be horizontal plank siding. We're having to go through all sorts of hoops to take care of these extensions. The purpose of these extensions, they serve as a transition between one siding and the other, and they also serve as nailers for that particular siding. They also are helping us determine, okay, this is where we're going to be transitioning from one to the other. As you might be able to see, we have a very crazy detail going on right here. You might see these vertical blocks, I guess, and they're coming down just at the right height for our exterior insulation siding. That's going to be here on the center area, on basically this ceiling right here. But the reason we're doing that craziness is because, again, steel is coming back to haunt us, and we have a massive steel beam right here. So that means we cannot screw or nail to it. Our solution was to come up with those little blocks, put flame block, protection against fire, and then adding the little, basically, foot that's going to be holding the insulation in place. One quick thing, actually, you might notice we also have the zip sheathing. We installed basically 16 inches of zip sheathing so that we could tape it. But again, we also have steel down here, so we ended up nailing here at the edge, and we used Lexel at the steel level. We hammered it a little bit so that it's nice and tight, and Lexel is doing an amazing job at keeping the zip sheathing in place. So that's how we're doing that. And the reason I'm carrying these screws right here is because we are using these Simpson 6-inch screws, and these screws are basically going into everywhere on the top plate around the house. That's what's holding our extensions in place. So this is going to be a tank. In my opinion, these are acting basically as an amazing brace. We're super excited to have this big mountain behind me, and this big mountain behind me is from our friends from Powerwool. It's a Rigiboard 80 and it's a mineral wool. We had such a terrible experience with Rockwool. I don't get why they advertise so much if they can't deliver. So anyway, the story with Rockwool is we placed an order. They said, oh yeah, we'll get you your Rockwool in a month. Then one month went by, 2 months, 3 months. After 3 months, I started calling them. They would ignore my calls. They would ignore my emails. They would ignore everything. And we actually paid completely in full. It was a big order. It was like the price of a small car. Completely paid in full. 9 months went by. They didn't deliver. We finally called the supplier and we said, you know what, we gotta cancel this stuff. They're never gonna deliver. And we ended up replacing that order with Polyiso. And so that's why you see us having the dual layer of first Polyiso and then mineral wool. Even then, we weren't sure we would be able to finish the entire house because we had a little bit of Rockwool available. I actually do like that assembly a lot better because Polyiso has an R value of 7 per inch, I think, while mineral wool has an R value of 4.2. So it's much more resistant to thermal transfer and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, going back to Rockwool, the problem with Rockwool is they have these allocations with different companies, and then we place the allocation on this guy. They told me, okay, order here, we have allocation, didn't deliver. We have allocation here, we have allocation here, allocation here. I don't care, just give me my material. I don't care about your allocations. Anyway, so that was a terrible experience. We gave up on mineral wool almost. We said, no, we're never going to get it. And then we went to IBS and we found our friends from Powerwool, which is amazing. We're super excited. The name of the board of this insulation is Rigiboard. It's equivalent, Rigiboard 80. It's equivalent to Comfort Board 80. And we placed the order. They delivered in a month. They were very straightforward. They were always on top of it. To be honest, it's amazing. I spoke to the guy. You should talk to Scotty. They have supply centers here in the East Coast and the West Coast. So if you want to order this, it should be available. But anyway, we're not sponsored. We're just super excited at the fact that we were able to get it. And that said, talking about the product itself, to be honest, I actually think Powerwool is better than Rockwool. This is a lot more solid. It feels more carton-like, which makes it really easy to cut. It makes for better assembly on the exterior. So see here, I can squish it, and it does squish, but not that much. Here I have a piece of Rockwool, which is also good material. The quality of the material is good. That's not a complaint. But this is a bit more squishy than Powerwool. So to be honest, I actually like this material much better. So with that out of the way, we can install this insulation. Corners are very important for siding, so let me show you how we're actually doing this. You might notice that we have a Z-Girt going this way every 2 feet, and then we have a Z-Girt going this way every 2 feet. That 2 feet dimension basically comes from the fact that our mineral wool comes in 2 feet. But the reason we're actually doing this is the siding, so that we can have a nice nailing and solid place for the corners. So we're going to be running a fairing strip on this side at the very edge, like here, 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 and then we take care of this side, and then we're going to be putting another one on this side, so here, 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 and then we can have a nice tight strong corner for the siding. And so that's the reason why we're doing this craziness. Oh yeah, one last thing, we run corners. You might see the Polyiso right here, but we want the full corner protected by mineral wool. Going back again to the fire protection, mineral wool will protect us, Polyiso will melt.
We're going to have a different video exclusive for the gutters and the downspouts because there's a lot going on. What you should know here is we're doing them concealed. If you remember, we left this opening here in the installation in order to install them. The one thing we would say is, well, sometimes you need to work with the materials you have, but ideally you should install the downspout first and then the insulation, because otherwise you might need to do this weird hole so that you can come in with the impact driver and attach the fasteners.
At this point, if you've been seeing our videos, you're probably getting tired of us talking about Intumescent paint, Master Flame. It's effectively a coating for, in our case, lumber, so that we can protect it if a fire ever comes. In theory, it should protect it, expand like 60 times, and prevent the fire from burning the lumber. I have always, up to now, trusted everything that this thing is supposed to be, but this is the first time that we're actually going to be doing an experiment with it. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be cutting a couple pieces of lumber. I'm going to apply Intumescent paint to one, not to the other, and then we'll find out what happens for good. Look, we have a mechanical sprayer that's super awesome. This works much better than using the little roller for everything. It's a little bit more wasteful, but it's way faster. Okay, cool. So I have here my 3 little blocks that I've cut. Letter A, I'm just gonna let it be by itself, no Master Flame. On letter B, I'm going to be applying Master Flame on all sides with my little sprayer. In letter C, I'm going to be doing the same thing, except I put the date on it so that maybe if I remember a year from now to try it, I'll try to burn it and see if it's still working. Otherwise, oh well. So a little bit later, let it dry, and then we'll go to the grill and see what happens. So we're finally ready to run this experiment. This is the reason why this video has not come out, is because I've been lazy about it, and we're finally at a good time where we can actually do fire experiments. We're actually going to be putting Powerwool inside of there. I'm gonna torch it and you'll see how amazing this is against fire. Here I have my 2 little blocks that I already sprayed last time you saw it. So let's do it. Okay, so the first difference I can really tell is that the Master Flame one did not stay on fire. The other one stayed on. It actually looks a bit more char. So I'm gonna wait for this to cool down and actually examine it by hand. Otherwise, I think the Master Flame did a little bit better. I was expecting something bigger, but anyway, that's what it is. So that's why we do this experiment. This is the one that didn't have Master Flame. As you can see, it's actually smoking, while the one that does have Master Flame is not smoking. So that's also a good sign. So after close-up inspection, I can definitely tell some differences. This is the one that did not have Master Flame. You might be able to see that it's grayish, that's ash. The corners on the block are a little bit rounded, so that means they burnt a little bit more, while this is the one that had Master Flame. You might actually be able to see it shine a little bit. I don't know if you can tell. You can see some of the original wood color behind it. The corners are sharper. There's no ash on this one. I actually do think it's doing its job. I do recommend that you use it as an additional defense against fire. It's Powerwool's turn, so let's torch it. Well, you saw this thing was glowing hot, red hot, and I turned it over, I put my hand on it, and I held it there, touching it, and it was barely warm, and that's the reason why we love this material. Now imagine in a fire situation, you have these really hot embers, everything, so it's protecting the house very well. I highly recommend you the use of Powerwool if you're in a fire-prone area. So I spent a lot of time thinking as to how we would do these cantilevers. We have this 4-foot, we have a couple 2 feet back there. The solution I came up with is by inserting these extensions. So let me show you with my hand first. So the first thing we do is we put a 2x vertically onto the cantilever at the very edge, flush, like this. The width of that is 4 1/4, which is our spacing. And then what I end up doing is I put a second extension, like a little seat, like an L, as you can see right here. That's also 4 1/4. And effectively what that ends up doing is it allows me to install the insulation on the wall and then underneath the cantilever. Because it's very important when you run the red line test, and that's a test to make sure that you're fully sealed. We don't want to have any gaps and we want to be fully continuous. So that means we need to take care of the cantilever. On the center area where we have the garage, we will be doing the exact same thing, except we will do it in big, but we won't be doing it in this episode because we need to run electrical and all sorts of other things. And then because of that, we need to pass inspection. In fact, that's why you see some of this open, because we need to run some plumbing, electrical, and then it needs to pass inspection. That's what you see right here. Here's the vertical. Here's the little seat for the wall that holds the insulation on this side. On this side, we will have another little seat that will hold the insulation for this wall. And then this right here is acting as nailer for our insulation underneath. You can see we haven't actually installed the insulation right here, but we have the insulation already in progress. So we install the zip sheeting first, and then we put our extension. So the point of these two extensions is to be a nice nailer for our soffits.
For the cantilevers on that side, we fill the cavities with insulation, then we apply our sheeting, and then we apply the exterior insulation. And that is because on those ones we don't have any plumbing or electrical that needs to pass inspection, so we can cover them. Whereas, for example, on these ones over here, we do have electrical and plumbing going on. We applied the zip sheeting on the side so that we could install our extensions, but we need to leave it open. We only covered some areas with the insulation where it was pretty much needed, and we don't have any plumbing or electrical going on.
We have this little crazy detail here where we install downspouts. I mentioned it before that we install the Z-Girts alternating on one side and the other. The reason we do that is because of nailing. In this case, when we have a downspout on the very edge of the corner, we needed to come up with something because we cannot install the Z-Girts right here in the very corner, obviously because of the downspout. So what I came up with is we install a 2x ripped onto the edge of the wall going that way, which is what you see right here. And then we install another 2x ripped, which is what you see right here on that side, and that actually acts as our corner, and we have proper nailing for the siding. Yeah, I just wanted to show you this real quick. This only happens when we do downspouts. One detail that may not necessarily be obvious is the way we're installing the insulation. We are actually staggering the insulation. So you might be able to see here our Polyiso seams don't line up with our Powerwool seams. And that's kind of important because if you leave a big gap or whatever, you don't lose your heat, or at least you have the other 2 inches of insulation to protect that seam. That said, unless your guys are surgeons or you're like a super surgeon, you're not going to be doing perfect cut. So you might end up with gaps like this one or like this one. What we do is we use this super awesome tool. It's a spray foam gun from Great Stuff. We've been using this forever. I think we started using it when we were building the foundation of the house like 2-3 years ago. I think back then we had like 10 subscribers. I don't think my mom was subscribed back then, and to be honest, I don't think she's subscribed right now. I don't think she knows how to subscribe. I hope you do subscribe though. That would be awesome. But anyway, we purchased the little can, the homeowner can. It works, it's perfect, but it just takes for forever, man. And it's like we have a lot of gaps to fill, and we cannot be wasting the entire day filling gaps. So we got this spray foam gun. It was like $80. We were being cheap, to be honest. That's what we do. And then once we got it, it was like this amazing. I don't know why we didn't get it before, just like with the pump checks and stuff. That's how we fill these gaps. Highly recommended. So let's continue. We're getting close to finishing.
Unfortunately, the wildfire season is already here. I don't know if you can see in the background, we have some haze from the smoke from wildfires burning relatively close by. Right now, the wildfire, it's in the Grandview Lake area. If you remember our episodes from the windows, it's a beautiful place. Our thoughts go to the people out there. Hopefully, they are going to stay safe. But with that, it's a reminder that we need to be ready for a wildfire, do the best we can to prepare for it. What I have right here, it's actually one of the best things you can do to protect your house from wildfire. This is a Vulcan gable vent. If you're not familiar with Vulcan vents, they are fire rated. This is what makes them special. If you can see, it has this wire mesh that it's about 1/16 of an inch. The opening, it's maximum 1/16 of an inch. That helps with two things. One, bugs cannot get in. But for fire, if you have embers flying in, this is going to prevent them from getting into the house. Now, the second layer of protection is what makes it really special, and it's that honeycomb pattern that you see in there. That is an intumescent material. So what intumescent means is that if it gets really hot, the material is going to start to expand, think like popcorn, and it's going to completely block this area so nothing can get into your house. And that can actually save the house from burning to the ground on a wildfire. If you remember, embers is the #1 cause why houses get burned to the ground. Those are the beautiful features. Now the ugly stuff, it's actually pretty ugly. So what we're going to do with the vent is we're going to paint it. That's probably what you see, that blue thing there. It's masking tape, so I just don't want the paint to get into the intumescent material. So we're going to paint it. And the second downside it has is airflow. So because it has all these features, it's going to block some of the air from coming in. So what we did is we measured the size of the ducts, and then when you go to the specs of the vents, they have a value. I don't remember the exact name, but they tell you the actual flow of air you're going to get in square inches. So make sure that that is going to match your duct, and ideally make it a little bit larger. This is the smaller size that they sell for gables, so 14x9, that's more than enough for what we need. I should mention none of these vents are rated for mechanical ventilation or anything like that, but we're willing to take the risk because fire protection is really important in here.
We are almost done with our installation. That's awesome. And you might have seen all these little boxes that we make for electrical, water. We put some aluminum on the back. This is very important that you do before you install your exterior insulation, because that way you get all your penetrations taken care of. We put the aluminum so that it's fireproof, and then also it looks nice. So I just wanted to mention this because you've seen them all over the place. Very important to think about them before you finish your installation. I already mentioned that it's very important to think all the penetrations that you're going to have in the house before you install the insulation. But here, back there, you can see that we have a vent, and that's for our makeup air. I highly recommend that you use a boring saw so that you make it as close, as tight as possible. That way you can air leak it as well as possible. And another thing I need to point out is you see that little black underneath the vent? That is aluminum. And the reason we put that in there is because we're going to be getting hot greases maybe coming from the stove or whatever. So we don't want to have any risk of fire onto our extensions. We're down to the last complicated wall that we have right here. We have a lot of craziness going on because we have a downspout coming in from this side. We have one downspout coming in from the roof. That's the beauty about doing concealed downspouts, that even though it looks kind of crazy, it's going to be all covered and it's actually outside of the house. So even if they do end up having a little leak here and there, it's not going to be the end of the world. So with that, we should be able to finish this wall here pretty soon and actually start putting the pump jacks away because we're almost done. And we're done with this episode. As you can see, everything has been assembled. In reality, we actually finished a couple months ago, but the only reason I'm recording right now is because of these little segments that I haven't finished. Let's talk about the insulation. We've had a couple really strong windstorms, like 110 mile per hour winds, and it actually held like a tank. I'm actually super impressed at how well this has held. We had a couple places where the insulation blew off, but if we had inserted a couple nails or screws, it would have been perfectly fine. So let's go to the Z-Girts. These are from Gladiator. To be honest, I really like this product. For our shed episode where we spoke about them on the roof, they didn't like that video because I spoke literally the truth, and I told them, well, what I said is the truth. They didn't like it. They asked me to remove it. I did not remove it. So anyway, whatever it is. The fact is, I do like it. They're a little bit picky, let's say. As far as the Z-Girts, I think what makes it special is the fact that they have these little slots so that you can insert these little tabs, and that helps very well to hold the insulation in place. I asked for a quote on these little tabs because we ran out, and they came back with a super crazy price. In fact, the shipping and handling was totally nuts. So anyway, my recommendation, if you ever purchase these guys, is to use nails or something like that, much cheaper, and that will also hold the insulation in place. Overall, I'm super happy. The exterior insulation is doing an amazing job. Right now, we're like at 10 degrees Fahrenheit or so. Inside the house, we're at around 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's doing its job, even though we don't have any heating. With that, I hope you consider liking, subscribing to our channel, and we'll see you on the next one. And if you have any questions, don't forget to comment down below. Bye.